Welcome to the Got Academy podcast. Hi everybody! Hi Noga!
Hi Gil!
Woof! Welcome for the first time to the Got Academy podcast!
Yeah. So cool to be here. I was finally invited. I was waiting, sitting at home by the phone, waiting for hours and hours.
You know that you can take the phone with you now. You don't have to stay at home by the phone.
But how will I walk around with the wire, dragging behind me like a veil? It doesn't seem right,
I'm having second thoughts about this whole thing.
Oh no, I did it again.
So we want to talk about the new Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, again.
To my right is Bounty Law series lead and Jake Cahill himself, Rick Dalton. And to my left is Rick stunt double Cliff Booth.
Yes.
So we had a video, not sure if it's already out when you're listening to this, but we talked about male friendships in the Tarantino filmography. Mm-hmm. But you wanted to talk about another thing that is related to this movie.
Right. First of all, I should warn the listeners that if they haven't seen the movie yet, then they should go watch it and then come back to this podcast.
And they should just watch it
They
regardless.
should exactly.
It's a very, very good movie.
Yeah, it's great and it's
Okay.
highly recommended.
Highly recommended. Okay.
And
So what struck you as very interesting from a psychoanalytical perspective about this movie?
To me, this movie was about death.
This movie was about death. I heard the smoothie. The smoothie. It's like a $5 shake. $5 smoothie.
Yeah, $5 shake. It's a Pulp Fiction reference.
Yes.
Because you'll probably put the soundtrack of Pulp Fiction in the.
And now that you mentioned it, I have to put it now.
A $5 shake.
Anyone with that shake, Martin and Lewis or Amos and Andy?
Martin and Lewis.
Did you just order a $5 shake?
Mm-hmm.
That's a shake. That's milk and ice cream.
Last I heard.
That's $5. You don't put bourbon in or nothing?
No.
Just checking. I gotta know what a $5 shake tastes like.
You can use my straw. I don't have cooties.
Yeah, but maybe I do.
Cooties I can handle.
God damn, it's a pretty fucking good milkshake.
Told you.
I don't know if it was worth $5, but it's pretty fucking good.
Okay.
So this movie was about death?
Yes.
Okay, first of all, there's a whole... When we start to watch the movie, one assumes that the viewers, we know that there's a huge horrible murder coming up at the end. And Charles Manson, he's like the Grim Reaper.
Right. So we keep waiting for the death to come, right? We know that it's coming. Every time I saw those hippies, I was afraid of the hippies all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, they're scary, I mean, in the movie, of course.
In the movie.
Yeah. I was watching it with a friend who wasn't aware of the specific history of the Manson family and everything. Okay. That friend watched the movie from a whole different angle.
And did you tell your friend that was coming, or that friend was left in the dark the whole time?
I had no idea that friend... The experience of watching the movie was changed due to that. I mean,
because we knew that something horrible was going to happen, and then she gets pregnant, and you're like, oh no! I didn't remember she was pregnant.
I remembered. As long as she wasn't pregnant, I thought, okay, we're still in the clear. It's not that time period yet. But then when I saw her pregnant, I was like, no, it's coming.
Oh my goodness!
And so there's an impending death, right?
Which is like death. We know that it's coming.
Yeah, we know that it's coming, and but we, in the movie, it's like we're also waiting for it to come in a way. Like we know that it's coming, and that it's coming in a very rapid pace, and that we, every sign of that is like the sign of deterioration, and we're getting close to that. But in the movie, there are all kinds of deaths, right? I mean, first of all, there's the death of a career. We're witnessing Rick Dalton's death of career.
There's also the death of a salesman.
Yes, but that's unrelated to the movie. But
Sorry.
that's a good reference, I guess, in another context, in another podcast, maybe.
That you own. The Noga Ariel Galor show. Okay, go ahead.
And there's also the death of a friendship, or the possible death of a friendship.
At the very end, it seems.
At the very end.
Yeah, okay.
But there's also like this kind of setting of
death of old Hollywood.
Yeah, death of old Hollywood. We see all kinds of dead actors portraying themselves, on the camera,
Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen, Bruce Lee, all kinds of
sad deaths.
Yeah, sad deaths, and also Hollywood itself is portrayed as somewhat of a place that is, you know, I mean, there are people in Hollywood that are still waiting to be born, you know, as actors like that. That young kid who is also, you know, waiting to be born, right? And we have, of course, the actors that died also as actors and are roaming the streets of Hollywood and the studios as ghosts. We have a ghost studio, right? The Spun Ranch, you know, and that's where
with zombies.
With zombies, right? All kinds of, you know, so there is this kind of like Hollywood is a ghost town, heaven, and also like this kind of like liminal stage of people who.
It's like not like a hell, but like a purgatory or something, just like
an
in-between
limbo.
place. Limbo. Limbo is a better.
Yeah. There's not. It's not real death, but it feels like it, right? I mean, he is really scared of the death of his career. We can see how he's really knowing that his career is about to end. Also makes him in that kind of state of mind. It's like the law of entropy, like things are now deteriorating, they're going back to their homeostatic space. So suddenly he mixes up lines and he can't keep focus and everything is just, you know.
But then he gets out of himself like the best acting that this little girl has ever seen, whatever, and we see that it's a great... it's a great bit that he did there.
Yeah.
The last moments you appreciate even more.
It's like what they call the swan song, or like the song of the swan, or whatever.
Swan song.
Swan song. That you get suddenly this kind of like energy and this something beautiful comes out of you just before the moment you die. So, and he was more ready to die for his career. Like after that he could accept, you know, the idea of doing Italian movies, spaghetti westerns, because he had this kind of like song before.
Right, and approval from this little girl.
Right, from this little girl, and
who represents maybe the new life.
Yeah, the new generation coming in. Yeah, exactly.
And can you see this death theme, death instinct theme in other Tarantino movies? Of course, there's a lot of death in all of Tarantino's movies. So in his first movie, Reservoir Dogs, literally everybody dies.
Right.
In Hateful Eight, everybody dies.
Mm-hmm.
In Django, almost everybody dies.
Mm-hmm.
In Pulp Fiction, the character that we identify with the most dies in the middle of the movie.
Tarantino declared in the past that he's going to make only 10 movies.
Right. This is his ninth.
This is his ninth. So I thought maybe about, you know, the fact that there is the death of his career. I mean, maybe he'll do some after, I don't know.
He'll do something after.
He'll do something after, that's right, but...
He will change diapers.
Yeah, but I'm sure that, yeah, probably. But I'm sure that it's on his mind in a way.
Of course.
Know? Yeah, and every movie that he makes...
Of course.
It's part of that impending
He's been
death.
very open about it.
Yeah, it's like the countdown. It's different than...
Self-imposed countdown.
Yeah.
So you think that the fact that in this movie specifically, more than in his past movies, the death in all of its aspects is so present is maybe because he knows that he's nearing the death of his career, made in his own hand, in his own time.
Yeah, maybe he's asking himself, and I'm sure that the answer is yes, but maybe he's asking himself if he will be reminded, remembered, like all those directors and all those, in the pantheon of the Hollywood film industry, or even
definitely.
beyond. Yeah, definitely he will be. But I think that this kind of like love song for Hollywood is also, he's part of it. He's part of Hollywood. All those deaths are also part of him in a way. Like we say here in Israel, we're all one big human tissue.
That's what we say?
Rikma enoshit achat chaya.
I never said that. Okay. I never agreed to that.
We say it all the time. We just...
I never signed on the contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. When you're part of a certain industry, then you feel like past, present, and future is all intertwined, It's all...
So we don't know Quentin Tarantino, but maybe when he's nearing the death of his career, the fact that he's now thinking about procreating and having a new Quentin Tarantino Jr.
How do you even know he's thinking about that?
I think he talks about it
Oh,
openly.
he talks about it openly, so
I
I
think
guess
I just heard him say it.
so
That he
yeah,
wants to have a family.
yeah.
So just like have a continuation, something to keep you alive anyways. Right? Also, his movies are full of references to dead movies, dead movie stars, dead movie makers, filmmakers.
Yeah.
So it's like in the very fabric, human fabric of his movies, you have dead movies that he has now taken and transplanted in his own movies to create something new.
Also, the death that we thought was supposed to happen didn't happen in the end.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler, yeah. Well, we already said.
That I was so relieved and happy when he changed the ending. I was like, yes, yes. It was like as if he created an alternative universe where this actually happened, more than the Hitler killing and the slave owner killing. This felt like as if I was watching something that actually happened in a parallel universe, where they mistook the house for another house, and Sharon Tate survived, lived, and she was like, oh my goodness, this is horrible. That's it.
Yeah.
Come over. And she was so happy, and everybody was happy. And then Hollywood, whatever, went in a different path, maybe in some way.
Polanski didn't pull a Polanski.
Didn't pull a Polanski.
Yeah. Kept making Hollywood films.
Should he still be arrested even if he has the ability to pull a Polanski, but he didn't?
Everyone has the ability to pull a Polanski, but most men choose not to. As we saw in the movie, right? It's
right.
He chose. Brad Pitt chose not to pull a Polanski.
Yeah. He wanted to.
He wanted to, but he chose not to.
He
That's
chose not to.
like real men say no to pussy. That was her name. I don't know.
Yeah, so that was very dehumanizing when you just have to say no to pussy.
That was that specific girl's name.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And a friend of mine told me that was very interesting how, so at first we dislike Cliff Booth, Brad Pitt, because we understand that he probably murdered his wife. We don't see him murdering his wife. We see his wife being a caricature of a super annoying woman on steroids, like the worst caricature of a woman. And just like wanting to be angry just for the sake of being angry. She doesn't have a point. She just wants to annoy the man. So this is a very like a male-centric view, misogynistic if you ask me. And then we see him thinking about maybe shooting her with a harpoon, and then it cuts away. So maybe he shot her by mistake, maybe not by mistake, we don't know. We dislike him. But then when he says no to pussy because she's 13, 14, 15, 16, whatever, then we're like, okay, he's a good guy. And this friend of mine told me that maybe that was a dig by Tarantino to what he would call the American moral values, what we would call basic decency. Maybe showing us how we are willing to disregard the fact that this man is a murderer of a woman, just because he wanted to see an ID before he would have sex with that minor. So, like, which is more important, killing a woman or having sex with a minor who is in the movie? Obviously, clearly, very interested in having sex with Brad Pitt.
Yeah, and we can guess that she's done that before because she said that she took rides to the Spahn Ranch, and maybe it's like a common thing that she does.
And she'll probably do it again.
If we're talking about death, going back to the subject of death, then it reminded me, Brad Pitt's character reminded me of Death Proof, another Quentin Tarantino movie with Kurt Russell's character who is death proof. I mean, at least until the end. And another spoiler.
We don't see him die. We're not sure.
Yeah, we're not sure that he's dead, but he's definitely not injury proof. So in the movie, we can see, he beats up Bruce Lee. That was, one of the scenes that we didn't like as much. And there was also in the car, he tells her, there were many situations in my life that I almost went to prison, but I didn't, and I don't want you to be the cause of me going to prison.
So that's the only reason. It's not a moral reason.
Right.
It's a pragmatic reason.
It's a pragmatic reason. It's like I can get away with almost anything, but I don't want to, do stuff that will test that.
Okay.
And at the end, of course, he also didn't die, during the attack.
Yeah.
So, and also, it makes me think about Tarantino's favorite character, favorite superhero, that he's also like death-proof in a way. Yeah. So there's also this kind of like engagement with death, or the notion of death and being, invincible.
Right. And DiCaprio, he's not invincible. He's not death-proof.
No, DiCaprio's career dies.
Right.
I mean, we see that. We know.
And we also think so.
Well, not DiCaprio's career, but Dalton's. DiCaprio.
It's wishful thinking on your part.
No. I respect him as an actor. I just don't like his face.
I think he can handle it because most women like his face.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, yeah.
So I don't like his expression, let's say, not the features.
Even though when we think that Cliff is going to get fired and he won't have any money to live on, it's as if he'll find a way. He's death-proof. He'll just find a way to survive.
Yeah, that's also true. And and people survive in Hollywood, like we saw, after death. Yeah, I mean, it's like the Shakespeare has on it, right? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? I mean, the creation stays long after the person who created it passes away.
But it's hard to be a has-been. He says, like, now I'm officially a has-been.
Yeah.
If you read or watch interviews with actors or other Hollywood types who are past their prime, it's hard.
It's hard. You're a ghost. You roam the streets. No one recognizes you.
Or maybe they recognize you for something that you did. So I read an interview with the guy that played Mr. Blonde. He did a bunch of other stuff, but everybody who stops him on the street said, you're the guy who played Mr. Blonde. A relatively small part that he did in 90...
A long time ago.
So now he's like 60. But still people remember him for the one thing that he did 40 years ago almost.
Yeah.
That can be easy.
Well, I mean, but how many people can say that? I mean, it depends on how you look at it, I guess. I mean, you can say, people still remember me for this, unforgettable role that I played.
But isn't it better to just people to come as yourself and not have, you're the guy who played that in there, and then it's like coming in with the baggage. Isn't it better to say, hi, I'm Gil?
Yeah.
And this, people will just like get an impression of you, who you are, right now.
Well, maybe that's the sad part of wanting to be famous in a way, because you want people to be interested in you.
Want recognition
as a person. And it feels like if you'll be famous, you'll be in the front line, and then people recognize you as a subject.
Yeah.
But,
meaningful subject with something to say of value.
Right.
Okay.
And at the end, they see you as the object that played this and that role. So there's something, yeah. But I do think that people can make different things out of it, and it's just...
But it's hard, it's a challenge.
It's hard, it's a challenge, definitely.
I definitely do not envy famous people, past, present, future.
They're ghosts.
So I was also thinking about when you talk about ex-athletes, former athletes, they have it the hardest because they have a short window of time, let's say if they're very lucky, 10 years, when they live a life of a movie star or a movie star and a rock star together because they're playing in front of stadiums and people are cheering or whatever and chanting MVP, whatever, getting accolades and interviewed and all that. But after 10 years, when their bodies start to decline and they are 34, 35, they are already considered has-beens. They have to adapt to this new situation and accept their decline, just as they're getting better in other aspects of the game, in the mental aspects of the game. So they have to deal with their death. There's this saying, I don't remember who said it, that athletes die twice, when they retire and when they die. And then they have 30, 40, 50, 60 years ahead of them of being X something. Their finest hour is in the rear view mirror. Woof. Think of Michael Jordan. Wakes up every day as Michael Jordan. That was great 20 years ago. There was this basketball player, Jay Williams. He was drafted second in his draft. Whatever. You don't understand anything I'm saying, but there's number one, then number two. So he was number two, the best, the most coveted player, number two in his year. And he had he had a great college career, had a solid / good first year, then had a motorcycle accident that was his fault, broke like his entire body, couldn't play anymore. And now he's in TV after a long, long time. But he was saying that whenever people meet him, and not because they're malicious, the opposite, they remind him of the worst thing that ever happened to him in his life.
Right.
They're like, oh man, how are you doing? It's been 10 years, 15 years, it's been a long time, thank you. But no, I was so sad when I heard about it.
You were sad, yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry I did that to you.
I guess they want to show empathy, but
right, of course, yeah.
It's kind of like the guy who played the Kramer, Richards.
Michael Richards.
Just before he went on a racist tantrum.
Tantrum.
The guy, or maybe after he went on a racist tantrum, that's actually more accurate. The guy, the guy that he tantrumed against, just insulted him in the worst way imaginable. Apparently, like, you only did one thing, Seinfeld. That's it. After that, nothing. And that's such a grave insult. But if you stop and think about it, it's like, he was part of.
I fucking did Seinfeld. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah.
What have you done?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it all depends on how you look at it. Also, there are people who say it depends on how you look at death and how you prepare to die. And, when the death is close. I mean, what you do. I mean, how you live your last life.
Okay, so I'll piggyback on that and ask you a question. What do you think, vis-a-vis what you just said, about the way that Tarantino is approaching his cinematographer death, setting the deadline and heading straight to it with his eyes wide open and saying it publicly?
So I guess there is also like the fear of death. I mean, it's a very it's a very common thing, and it's a very of course it can take so many it can make you respond to that or react to that in all kinds of ways. I'm guessing that he is, he wants to do the swan song. Like, he wants to do maybe his greatest masterpiece. And I think that he's, in a way, probably, he has like a checklist that he would like to do, all kinds of stuff that he would like to do. Like this kind of like Hollywood tribute thing that was perhaps one of them. And also maybe, Django and Inglourious Bastards, this whole kind of like slavery and a Holocaust thing, maybe that was also part of it. And so in a way, I mean, probably, Erickson, who was one of the like developmental theoreticians, he said that when people get older, then they start thinking back about their lives. They start thinking, what have I done, this and that.
We don't need Erickson for that. I think we
know
that.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, but
he said it.
We always need references.
It was
in
he
academia.
who said it. Wow.
We can't say anything without referring to someone else who also said that. So yeah, but
okay.
And so I guess that probably he's thinking about maybe how to wrap up things together. Is it going to be also a tribute to himself? What will be like the final note of Tarantino in that sense? What has he not done yet that he would like to do?
Family.
Yeah. Well,
that's what he says. That's what he says.
No, but like in the movies. I mean, not in his life. I mean, hopefully he has 50 more years.
I think this is the two things that are one. As he's watching like who he was for so long being a movie buff, and I think he said that prior to him now getting married, there was a long time that he was very lonely, sitting in his house, in the cinema that he has in his house, watching movies by himself. And I don't know him, but he seems kind of like awkward socially. As one thing is dying, another thing is replacing it, and now it will be Quentin, the husband, the father, partner, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, movies are like children in a way.
Yeah.
It's,
So in some ways, it's a little bit like I think it's very mature and very brave to face your own mortality. Be aware of this mortality way before it is coming. Just like you know it will come. It will take, in this case, 10, 20 years. Okay, but it will come. And then I'll prepare myself to do something else after that. Again, if you take it to athletes that prepare the second career before the first career is over.
yeah, or like models, and like Balotelli, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, she prepared herself to be. She has percentage in all kinds of places to be a businesswoman and not only a model when she is not she's no longer able to do that.
Yeah, you're right. It's like politicians who, before they leave office, they already have a moneyed interest in corporations to have. This is actually not the same.
No, maybe that's different.
It's not really the same.
Maybe, yeah.
They think that it is the same.
Yeah, but it's not
but
the
it's
same.
not the
yeah.
same. It's not the
It's
same.
morally different.
I'm actually now very impressed in the way that he did it, like from a psychological perspective.
But you can also see it as, as a kind of like a career suicide, and not in the sense that suicide in a way is like being responsible. I mean, taking control of your own death.
It's like euthanasia to yourself, giving yourself euthanasia.
Yeah, many people who commit suicide, that's how they think about it. I mean, you're in pain and you do that. But also, it's about. I mean, death is out of our control. I mean, we can't control the fact that we will die, and we can barely control the fact of how we will die. The only way we can control it is when we decide when to do it and how to do it, right? And
if we choose.
If we choose to commit suicide, I mean, that's part of.
Sounds a little bit like you're encouraging.
No, but that's like the existentialists. That's what they said. I mean, that if you have free choice, the only thing that you can really have free choice over is if you want to die, and to commit suicide. So in a way, it's also like a defense mechanism. I don't want to reach the point where I will make phone calls and no one will answer.
But isn't that also healthy?
It could be, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying. It can be a healthy defense mechanism.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to.
I don't want to
go,
be kicked out.
Yeah, exactly. You want to go when you're still in your peak. I mean, when you're still wanted, when people are still, calling you maybe years after. Let's do something together. Come on, this and that. I mean, it can be much more tempting, and many people don't have the boldness to do it, right? Because they don't know. You don't exactly know when your peak is over.
Yeah.
So you don't want to take that chance, and it's a very bold move. And if it suits him, then great. If he chooses to do other things later, then that's also great. That's his choice. But
Okay. This was very nice.
Yes,
we should do it again.
Yeah,
right.
it's cool. Yeah,
it's really different
it's
to
different.
the
Yeah.
podcast thing.
Yeah, it's more like when we're sitting and drinking coffee together.
Yeah, just in English.
Yeah, just
That's
in
totally
English.
different.
Yeah.
Right, it's more like the podcast is like more laid back. Yeah, there's more time.
We don't have to get their attention, the millennials' attention.
Freaking millennials. Well, thank you, millennials, for listening in.
Yes, we love you, millennials.
Love you, millennials. And maybe very, very soon, millennials, maybe the US president, if you're American millennials, will be either Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. And then you will no longer have student debt. So the healthy thing financially to do would be since obviously one of them will be president, of course. So you will have a lot of spare money, so you can maybe be a patron now and spend that spare money in advance before that happens.
Right.
Just $2 per month, that's it, a cup of coffee.
Makes a lot of sense.
Right, financially.
Financially, yeah. It's very sensible, and we know because we're Jewish.
Oh, I don't know what to say about that.
It's a very wise investment.
Very, very wise investment in a lot of future podcasts and videos that you will enjoy very, very much. Okay, so thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Noga.
Thank you, Kim.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.